If you want to run a fast 60 meters, all you need to do is stand up and run as fast as you can, right? Wrong. If you want to run a fast 60 meters, then you're going to have to get good at executing 4 different things. If you try to skip them, then you're going to hinder your ability to run fast as you would like to anyway. So if you're interested in finding out what those are, then keep watching. Hi guys, and welcome back to Fit with T. I hope you guys are good. When it comes to the indoor season, the 60 meters is like the crown and jewel. Everyone wants to see how fast they are, where they're at right now when it comes to winter training. If you want to do that, you want to make sure that you go through the phases of a 60 meter race. When it comes to sprinting, people don't always think about a race strategy, but I've mentioned before in this video that for a sprinter, executing our race correctly is our race strategy, okay? So when it comes to the 60, you want to make sure that you get a good start, that you go through the acceleration phase, transition well, and then in your upright running, your max velocity running, that you execute that well as well. The 60 meters is the shortest official sprint event, right? So the start is obviously the first thing that you need. You need a good start, right? That means that you need to know how to do the crouch start as a minimum, but of course set up your blocks correctly. And the first 2-3 strides, what we're talking about when it comes to the start, okay? So being able to power out of those blocks, explode out of the block. So if you don't know how to set up your block and you don't know how to do the crouch start, then I've got videos for you. I've got this one and I've got this one. Check those out, guys, because that's going to help you to get a good start. You want to make sure that you have the correct angles in your leg. If your leg is too far back, the back leg is too far back, you're not going to be able to push off and get the spring that you need. I've got a video about breathing techniques that's going to help you in the start as well. I've got a number of videos now when it comes to how to get a better start. Make sure that you're confident when it comes to starting, because that's going to be very, very key. When it comes to training to improve your start, like I said, you want to do technical session when it comes to the blocks, and of course you want to work on your power, okay? You want to get really strong, because that's where people who you find that are extremely strong in the gym, is usually they're very good at starting, they're very explosive out of the blocks, they're very explosive when it comes to those big pushes. So that's where strength really does play a part, particularly in sprinting. Getting a good start in the 60 is critical, and it can put you ahead or leave you behind. You want to react to the gun, you don't want to get a full start. You want to make sure that you're reacting and that you're very explosive out of those first 3 steps. Getting a good start is where you want to start, basically. So following on from that, we're talking about the acceleration, okay? So this is now continuing on from those first few steps, but it's that drive phase of your race. It's where you see athletes in that like 45-degree angle almost, right? And that's the part where you're building up your speed. I've spoken about the phase of 100 meters before, and of course the 60 meters is 40 meters shorter than 100, so you're gonna go through those same sort of phases. However, you don't necessarily have the speed maintenance that's gonna come at the end. You don't have the deceleration time, so you really do need to make sure that you're very good at accelerating, okay? So that's where all your training, when it comes to like the resistive runs that we spoke about before, doing all that acceleration work, actually practicing your acceleration, the technical side of things, being very explosive and teaching yourself to build up speed in those positions. Because if you just stand up and pop up in a 60 meters, you're really not going to go anywhere. You're not going to be able to hold your top speed for 60 meters. And so you want to make sure that you actually give yourself a chance to develop your top speed, build up to your top speed in the race. So you want to go through that drive phase. So that's where you are in, like I said, that horizontal angle, and you begin to come up, right? And that part where you begin to come up, that is what we call the transition. That's what I call the transition anyway. Other people do also call it the transition. Let me know if you call that part anything else. That is where you're transitioning from being in a more horizontal angle into a more upright position, right? So that transition, in order to get that right, you have to have made sure that your start was good and that you set up your hips in the acceleration phase, that everything is front side. So you don't leave your hips behind. You have your hips rotated forward so that you can continue to punch your knee forward as you begin to come up, okay? It's not like a readjustment that has to take place. You can transition into your upright running and then move into your max velocity, your upright running, your max speed. And because, like I said, this is 60, if you really do make use of your acceleration, really build up to as much speed as you can, use that time to build up as much speed as you can. So when you get to that 35, 40 meters mark, you only have like 20 meters or so to maintain that top speed. And that's where you want to make sure that you have a very good technical model where you're using your arms aggressively, driving your elbow towards the sky, hands down past your hips, where your knees are coming up, you're dorsiflexing the feet, you're powering down to the ground. But most importantly, one of the things you really want to have is relaxed, controlled aggression, okay? So you want to be aggressive, but you don't want to be tight, because as soon as you tighten up, as soon as you start getting rigid, you're going to lose your power. You're not going to be able to maintain the flow that you have. You're not going to be able to maintain your speed. You're actually going to cut your speed, right? So you want to be aggressive, but you want to do so whilst being relaxed. So it sounds kind of like contradictory, but it's something you have to practice in training. And one of the really great ways to practice staying relaxed while at speed is actually to do max velocity training sessions. So things like flying runs, in and out, these are really, really great. And I've done a whole video about max velocity training sessions. So check that video out over here. And if you do want to find out more about the 100-meter phases that I spoke about before, how can you run a fast 100 meters? What are the extra phases that you have in 100 meters that you don't necessarily have in the 60 meters? Then check that video out over here, and I'll see you guys on another Friday. Bye guys.